Welcome to Set in Stone, an Ozinga podcast, where we converge with industry leaders, our own expert coworkers, and others on what we've made, what we can build on, and the legacy we'll leave behind. Subscribe to the program on your preferred podcast app, as well as on YouTube for full video of every conversation. And give us a follow on Instagram at setinstone_podcast. Today's guest is Chicago historian Shermann Dilla Thomas. A lifelong resident of the city's Auburn Gresham neighborhood, Dilla's affinity for his hometown led to him dropping 60-second history lessons on TikTok and Instagram, which have taken off in a big way. Through these bite-sized biographies on everything from Bronzeville to DuSable Lakeshore Drive, and how Chicago innovations have impacted the rest of the world, Dilla has amassed almost 250,000 followers on social media, leading to corporate speaking engagements for Microsoft and Google, and his own YouTube series titled You Don't Know Shy, educating viewers further on the rich and varied cultures that make the Windy City so unique. Sharing his deep knowledge has earned him several local awards, partnerships with the city's pro sports teams, and the launch of Dilla's own tourism company. Let's check out today's conversation, led by Ozinga CEO, Marty Ozinga.
Well, we are excited today to have some special guests in the studio here in Mokina, Illinois. Dilla is with us. We're very happy to have you. And Laura is here, and Laura is a coworker of mine, and she's my co-host today. And one of the things we're excited about this podcast, we're just kind of getting going off the ground, and one of the things I'm excited about is to have subject matter experts that are introduced by our coworkers. Laura and Dilla met each other, and I'd like to just get into that a little bit. How did you even connect? And I'd love to hear all about your story, Dilla, when the time comes.
So I'm the corporate archivist, and so...
By the way, I didn't even know that was a thing a few years ago, but I heard with our 100-year anniversary coming up, I was like, I want one of those.
And lucky for me that you did that. that you did that.
I'm glad you're here.
It's a very cool job.
So we became part of the Chicago Collections Consortium, which is a group of cultural institutions in and around Chicago. And Dilla presented at their annual meeting last year, and I was just blown away by how much you know about Chicago history and how you're able to engage a really broad audience that typically doesn't get history. It's boring, right? So that to me was amazing, and that was why I reached out to you and was kind of like, hey, we've got all of this primary information in our archives that, hopefully we'll be able to get out into the public. But until then, how can we kind of work together to make this a thing? Because Englewood that Ozinga started in is kind of your, it's not your home base, but obviously a big part of your world.
Yeah, very much so. I spend a ton of time in Englewood. But Brother Marty, really honored to meet you. Thanks for you all having me out. Huge fan. I know that kind of sounds weird, like you're a huge fan of this corporation, right? Like, you guys don't shoot jump shots, but... I'm very familiar with what Ozinga means. There's these names in Chicago, Crown family, Daly family, Ozinga family, McCormick family, right? There's these names that one make us really unique as a city. That I guess that's why Chicago has like this family feel about it. It's like we're built, and by and large, in a real way, by a bunch of families. Yeah. So honored to be talking to one of those families that built Chicago.
We're honored to have you. I would say, in follow-up to what Laura said, is that I love history, and I love Chicago. And so it's a great honor to have you here and the work that you're doing to sort of uncover the history of Chicago. And then I got this hat. Actually, I'm wearing it today. My wife got it a couple of years ago from one of the Chicago airports for my son. Tell me what's this all about?
That's my very trademark slogan, in case people need to make sure, because it's been getting ripped off everywhere lately.
Oh yeah, that'll happen. We have to send nasty grams to people about our red and white stripes all the time. You're like, hey, those are trademarked. Yeah, you can't be stealing those.
Right, but the hat he's wearing says everything dope about America comes from Chicago, and that's a phrase that I've coined because I was always on the defense as it relates to Chicago. Anywhere I go to Kansas City, and as soon as you say you're from Chicago, it's either Al Capone or corrupt politicians or gang banging or whatever else they pull out of the national media without ever having been here. And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, we're in Kansas City. Your whole entire city's on the grid. I wonder where you guys learned that from, right? Or, a very famous place in Kansas City is a street corner, 18th and Vine. And that's where the National Jazz Museum is. And that's also where the museum is for the Negro Leagues. And I'm like, there's a big picture of a Chicagoan inside of that Negro League museum because Rube Foster, a Chicagoan, starts the Negro Leagues for the country. So, as much as you talk junk about us, everything you like about America has a Chicago component to it. And I kept just saying that so much, like, man, everything dope about America comes from Chicago. And I just kept saying
love it.
People were like, you might want to put that on something. So
Yeah.
we did.
Yeah, and you got it on lots of swag now,
Yeah.
and you can find it at the airports. I would love to hear your story. Would you mind sharing some of
Yeah,
it?
it's almost like a happy accident. My mom used to say the Lord looks after babies and fools, and so it was that. I was working at the light company here in Chicago. Had a real decent job as an area operator, working downtown, union gig, working on the power grid downtown, which allowed for me to see Chicago from its underbelly. There are a ton of buildings that are new over the last, say, 10 years that have went up that, my signature is in the book, right, as one of the builders, or my signature's on the beam, and that kind of stuff. So learning Chicago from that way, and then my dad being a cop taught me a lot about Chicago, and I caught my dad at a really good time. I think he was like maybe 35, 36 when I was born. So he's developed some patience, you know what I mean? So by the time I'm coming up, he's in his 40s and early 50s. And he'd have these nostalgic moments and he just want to drive around Chicago and revisit stuff. And lucky for me, I was in the car with him. And so.
What year was he born?
My dad was born in 1946.
Okay, so my dad was not too far off. I think there's something about that generation, just like to drive around in the car and just
From
we're going for a ride.
Yeah, but then also that particular generation, they see the expressways become a thing. So before them, right, it was taking Ashland everywhere or Western or whatever. So they kind of got accustomed to that, and thankfully I got to experience Chicago in his back seat. And anytime I had a question about something, he wasn't the type to just let you have a question. As I got older, I learned not to ask any questions to him because we're headed to the library. He's stopping what he's doing and he's getting a book. And then in today's world with the internet, oh man, he'd be sitting you down, pulling up research if he was still around. But I'd have questions, why is this, Daddy, what the heck is Halsted? And he'd be like, I don't know. Let's find out somebody who does. And next thing you know, you're at the Thurgood Marshall Library trying to dig in. So that had been my life for 20 years easily. And then pandemic happens and we're all stuck in the house. My daughter wanted to get on TikTok, but in our household, you can't have social media before you're 13, you know. And she was super young. And so we were like, hey, well, what could it hurt for me to put TikTok on my phone? And then, I can kind of supervise it. And from watching the content that were people putting up and also watching how people were talking about Chicago, it kind of turned the wheels turning. And I'm like, hey, why don't we start doing Chicago content? It was intended to be done with me and my daughter. And she having no parts of it. She wanted to just dance, and that's it. So my wife
I've seen the TikTok dances,
right?
Plenty of those out there.
And my wife, God bless her, was just like, well, just do a couple, see what happens, right? At least you'll be getting these stories out that you're always boring us with. And so, in no time at all, they kind of gained a lot of popularity. The videos start going viral, and I realized that, man, this is something people enjoy, and it's educating them. And so, I kept doing it. And
history's a great teacher.
Yeah, very much so.
And in our world today, it doesn't seem like there's enough sort of content that makes it easy and accessible. Like you said, you have to go to the library, you have to go to these, boring places.
Archives.
Right.
But you've sort of made it accessible as you create content. What have you found sometimes does it like really hit unexpectedly, or is it just sometimes it falls flat when you think it's good? Or
Man, you're hitting the nail right on the head. Sometimes I'll like research a thing I want to make a video about for a week. One time, I tracked this guy's family down. His name is Dr. Richard Lawler. Went to Loyola Medical School, went to play football in Michigan, came back, went to DuSable a little bit too. But anyway, Dr. Richard Lawler is the first, you guys will love this, talking to the Ozingas, right? He's the first person ever to perform a kidney transplant. He did it at a little company of Mary Hospital.
Yeah, that's where I was born.
Right?
Yeah.
We can call that the baby hospital around here, right? So right in Evergreen Park, he performs the world's first kidney transplant.
Wow.
And so I want to tell his story, but I like having parts in the video that you can't Google. And so you can't find this guy's yearbook picture, right? He graduated high school in like 1907 or something crazy like that. So I throw his name at Ancestry.com, and then I start going through his genealogy. Then I find branches from his siblings, and then I go find the grandchildren, and then I am blind emailing these people like, hey, I want to make a TikTok. Would you happen to have
TikTok,
your great uncle's high school yearbook from 100 years ago? Or can you confirm that this is the high school he went to? Does anyone in your family have an obituary? And sometimes they're like, you're crazy. You like, I live in Massachusetts. I don't know anything about Chicago. I didn't even know this guy was related to me, but I'll ask around for you. And so
Yeah, that's some serious research.
went through all of that, and the video was a dud.
Okay.
Right? Nobody really watched
So what's
it.
the lesson, or what do you learn from that?
I don't know. Just
Yeah.
keep making them.
Just
I
keep
guess.
making them, see what happens.
Just keep
You know,
making them.
surprises
Because
you.
I was just joking around, and I was like, so if a person really loves you from Chicago, they'll pick you up from O'Hare. And then I told the story of who O'Hare was and the history of the airport, just like in a 30 minutes sitting in the office, just didn't know kind of nothing, just off what I knew off my head. And then that gets 500,000 views.
Wow.
You're like,
Yeah.
You
I
know.
mean, how many people in the world have been through O'Hare Airport?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
that's an interesting thing.
Talking about where you go to get your information, like what's your take on the best places to go? And the other question that I wrote down was, I want to know what your favorite repository is. Like, do you have a like a fave?
I definitely have. To be
We're
honest.
starting to get into some nerd talk now.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right. The Chicago Consortium collection might be my fave if we're talking like digital images. And even in that, if they haven't digitized it yet, they'll tell you where you can go to see it.
Right.
And what we're talking about is this collective. I think most of it's housed by the Chicago History Museum, but Ryerson and other kind of historic repositories. As people research stuff, you pull it out the archives, they'll digitize it, and everything they've digitized, they put online for free. It's been really, really cool. It's a great way for you to see what architecture look like, what Chicago streets look like. So that may be one of my favorite. My go-to, particularly for Chicago, probably always start with the Chicago Tribune archives. It goes all the way back to 1844. ProQuest is pretty cool. It allows you to access journals and students' dissertations and theses. I really like going to special collections, though. Going down to either Harold Washington Library or going to the Newberry Library.
Newberry.
Okay.
Yeah, I like going to Newberry Special Collection as well. They pull out all kind of stuff for you and let you have at it when you're doing the research.
You have a shirt on, and I know it's one of your branded swag shirts, but it's got the neighborhoods of Chicago. Some people don't know, Chicago is sort of this collection of neighborhoods. How many would you say? Some people throw out different numbers, how many there are.
So-
what is your official?
We have roughly 150 neighborhoods.
Okay, that's almost double what most people say.
Right. Those neighborhoods are mashed together in these things called community areas. And so we have 77 community areas. Now, sometimes they don't make any sense, the community areas. Like, for instance, Humble Park as a community area does not have Humble Park, the park, in the community area.
Interesting.
Which is absolutely crazy, right? Or like Garfield Park, I don't think it's in Garfield Park, right? It might be in Austin. So it's like that kind of silliness. And then there's a story even about like how we got to the 77 and where they come from, which isn't a very good thing at all.
Go for it. What's not good about it?
Well, so Chicago didn't have a whole lot of like Jim Crow laws at all, except for one. There was this thing called restrictive racial covenants.
Okay.
And so let's take Woodlawn as a neighborhood, right? 61st Street to 67, Stony Island to King Drive. if 85% of the property owners signed an agreement, they could say who they wanted to live in that boundary. And so most of the time the agreement would say something like, only people of European descent can live here, right? Which blocked out a whole lot of people, particularly people that look like me. And so when the University of Chicago sociology department is naming and numbering the 77, the University of Chicago is who gives us the 77. But the boundaries they follow are these racial covenant boundaries.
Okay.
Right? Which further kind of etches us into being a hyper-segregated city. It's the worst thing about Chicago and the best. You know, it's the worst thing, right? Because I didn't get to grow up next to, anybody named Presbeluski. Yeah. I couldn't have a Jewish friend whose granny gave me hummus. I didn't have a Mexican friend. You know what I mean? And so these cultural things that I miss. I'm an adult before I realized how serious Italian people take family dinner or, So that's a bad thing for sure. But the good part out of it is, in 2025, I can go visit these cultures and you really get a true slice because they've been inside of these walls for the last 100 years. Greek town is still Greek as hell. You know what I mean? The little village is still very Mexican. Milwaukee Avenue is still very Polish.
And I've known people who are from those neighborhoods and have never been downtown.
Yep.
It's
There's no need to go. They're like, what am I going downtown
Why
for?
would I go downtown?
They have all their little shops. They have everything they need right there in their neighborhood, right in their community.
And what neighborhood did you grow up in?
I grew up in Auburn, Gresham.
And you've been there your whole life?
My whole life.
Okay.
Makes my wife sick. I grew up in Auburn, Gresham, about 2 blocks south of St. Sabina.
Okay.
Which is Father Michael Flager's church, very popular in Chicago. And then I went away to Eastern Illinois University. Came back, had an apartment in Chicago Ridge for like a year and a half.
Oh, outside the city now.
Yeah, had an apartment. But then when I got a good job and we got married and all this other kind of stuff, I was like, I want to buy a house where I grew up. So we ended up buying a house in Auburn, Gresham. So
good. But your wife isn't.
Yeah, my wife is from East St. Louis.
Ah.
She's like, the thought of staying where you grew up, what are we doing? I told her we are going to eventually move to the north side just so that I can say that I lived on the north side before.
It's like a different country up there.
Oh, my goodness.
I was in Edgewater for 15 years.
Okay.
On the lakefront. And I love that neighborhood because it was so diverse. Plus, easy to get on and off the bus, right? Get downtown.
Yeah, and you can't be mad at the lake.
The lake's amazing. It's one of the jewels of Chicago. I mean, we have a Chicago flag, and a lot of people don't know the symbolism of it. Since you're a history guy.
Absolutely. It's how we start off a lot of our neighborhood tours.
Okay.
We do the tours, and that's probably the first question I ask people. Most people don't notice that there are 3 white stripes on the Chicago flag. They kind of look at it as filler, right, or background, but it's not. There are 3 white stripes. Those represent the 3 sides of the city. North side, west side, south side.
What happened to the east side?
No east side, right?
If someone says they're from the east side,
Oh, man. And then it pisses if you live in Hegwish or South Chicago.
Do that. They kind of talk that way sometimes.
They feel like they're super east, but no, the lake is east.
Yeah.
We don't have an east side. So
Right.
3 white stripes are 3 sides of the city. 2 blue stripes. One is the Lake Michigan. The other one is the Chicago River. 4 red stars on the Chicago flag. First one is Fort Dearborn, which is the military fort that preceded the town of Chicago. We were started as a military fort, then we become the town of Chicago, then we become the city. Second star is the Great Chicago Fire, 1871. The lady's cow didn't do it. Stop telling that damn lie.
Yeah, Mrs. O'Leary, man.
It's
She
still
got blamed
O'Leary.
for the whole thing.
It's still O'Leary's in the Chicagoland area.
Yeah, they had to move. Okay, they didn't all move out, huh?
So they moved out of Chicago, right? They had to move to suburbs. Inglewood was considered a suburb when the fire happened, and now they're in the northern suburbs.
Yeah, Inglewood wasn't even part of the city, I don't think, at that time.
No,
it was
not
its
at all.
own suburb.
Yeah. So that's the second star, Great Fire. Third star is the 1893 World's Fair, Columbian Exposition.
A little Ozinga history. The Ozinga family came to Chicago and settled in Inglewood in 1893.
The fair is what brought them here?
I don't know. We don't know.
We don't know for sure. All we know is 2 people who were both from big families were the only 2 that came here. So which is unusual. They had six pieces of luggage and 3 kids, and
But
it was
there's no record of them doing anything in the fair or for
No.
the fair. They were vegetable peddlers, and they settled in Inglewood where there was a little bit more land to
They definitely were peddling vegetables at the fair, right?
Yeah.
It was something to the tune of 8 million people visited Chicago for the World's Fair, which blows my mind. We never stopped to think about that. 8 million people got on hot, stinking ass boats and came all the way.
Yeah.
Then had to take trains, which were a lot slower and a lot more dangerous then, from all points to get to Chicago. And the hotels didn't have air conditioning. It was like, we barely got running water in a lot of places, and yet all these people come.
That's a lot of people.
But when you got 8 million people in your city, in and out, it wasn't all at once, right? At any given time, it might have been an extra million people, though, during this fair. And so every restaurant is running out of food. You know what I mean? Everybody that's a carpenter is swinging a hammer. Everybody that changes horseshoes is doing that, right? It was something to like a net profit of $7 million.
Wow.
Right, which is a lot of money for 1893. That is a ton of money.
especially during a global depression.
Especially during the global, right? It was the Great Panic of 1893, right?
Yep.
That's how we get Labor Day, because of
Exactly.
that, which comes from Chicago.
There we go, another thing.
Yeah.
Another day off.
Man, we all the day offs come from us. Memorial Day, John Logan gives us Memorial Day. That's who Logan Square is named for.
Okay.
He
Dedication Day, right?
Right, Declaration Day.
Declaration Day.
Turns into Memorial Day because of GAR, Grand Army of the Republic, organization founded in Chicago. So Memorial Day will take. Labor Day.
Dope.
Yep.
Labor Day comes from the Pullman train car company strike out of the Pullman neighborhood. We'll take that. And then there was an Illinois congressperson by the name of Ralph Metcalf and Harold Washington who presented the bill to make Dr. King Day a holiday. So that one's us.
That was to Ronald Reagan? Or?
Yep.
Yeah, I remember.
So you got
reading
3 days off work, all because of Chicago.
Great.
Right?
I'm jumping around a little bit, but what about your family, your roots coming to Chicago? What do you know much about that?
And I'm rarely in a room with people who got older Chicago ties to me, so it's kind of upsetting me a little that
so not trying to do that.
You're beating us by about 4 decades here. I consider myself like this ultimate Chicagoan. What you guys are, well, you're right at the line. So there's this thing called Old Settlers. It's basically anybody that comes to Chicago 1893 or before.
Okay.
People who come after the fair aren't considered old settlers. So you guys are old settlers.
We're right on the line. We're like not Gen Xers and millennials. We're like right.
Yeah,
right
exactly
there.
where I am as a human right now, right? They say I'm like an old millennial, but I wore biker shorts and listened to Sheila Easton and all that other stuff in the '80s with everybody
That sounds
else.
like an Xer.
I was just young,
Yeah.
But no, my great grandfather from Oklahoma comes through Kansas City, comes to Chicago right about 1922.
Oh, okay, that's pretty early.
So for black folks, people of color, we come north via the Great Migration.
Right.
So from 1915 to 1970 is when blacks are leaving the South. But we're at the top of that. In 1922, my great grandfather comes here.
And do you know what was for what?
To work
what
for the
cause?
railroads.
Oh, okay.
To work for the Illinois Central Railroad.
Got it.
One of his buddies got him a job, and that was a pretty good earning, to be working on the railroads. He ends up living on South Parkway. He's working on the railroad, and he's the super for this building. And our family's claim to fame is that when Jesse Owens had enough of how he was being treated in Ohio, he moves to Chicago, and my grandpa rents him an apartment. My great-grandpa rents Jesse Owens
Oh my
an
gosh,
apartment.
that's amazing.
That's
great.
super cool. That's on my mom's side of the family. My dad's mom, I guess we're here, right? So she ain't here to pinch me. It's like I'm telling on her I'm not supposed to, but she was, my dad's mom was in a grocery store pregnant with my dad in Mississippi in the early part of 1946 with her little brother. And some troublemakers came in the store and started attacking her little brother, and she pulled out a switchblade and cut one of the guys, and they had to flee. And so they come to Chicago that night in 1946.
There's all kinds of reasons to migrate.
Right?
Wow.
And what's so brave about it, she said all they knew was that they had a cousin that moved to Chicago from Mississippi that none of them had ever met. But they came up here and found that cousin, and she ends up
The Bible's full of stories of all kinds of people, like characters who do move around for different reasons. But
And you always move family, religion, work, right? Those are the three main reasons that people emigrated, immigrated, moved.
being a historian of Chicago itself, and even more recently, I mean, there's been a lot of population decline, and how do you look at like the growth of the past? And I mean, Chicago at one point I think was the fastest growing city in the world.
Yes, we were. That's why we're second city, right? We were only second to New York for a pretty long time. It wasn't until the 80s that LA overtook us as the second largest population. We had the title for a very long time. I think that's what makes Chicago so unique. Not to oversimplify things, but we all been in school. You're in the same class with these dudes from 3rd grade to 6th grade, and then somebody new transfers in. You guys treat them cruddy. It's just like how it is. Y'all been together since 3rd grade. Nobody's going to pick him, He's the new person, and whether it's right or wrong, we all treat him like crap. But then one day, you guys come out, and he's sinking three-pointers on the basketball court. Now, all of a sudden, you're like,
kind of like
man,
this guy.
I like this guy. You know what I mean?
Like Chris Chelios when we traded him for Savard.
Right? And that's the story of Chicago, right? The first people that kind of get here are dudes from England that come from New York. And then the Germans get here. And then the dudes from England are crappy to the Germans. But then they start realizing, like, these German dudes can build their asses off. Oh, my God. Like, these factories are so much better because they're here. Yeah. And then now they're cool. And then same thing, right? Then the Irish come, and it's like, oh, who these guys? Potato eaters. And then we're going to treat them like crap. And then you look up, and the Irish dudes are digging the Illinois-Michigan Canal. And then you're like, oh, we need this thing. And now the Irish are cool, right? And then same thing, right? Then blacks start coming up, the Great Migration. And so I think we get so caught up in that period of where we're the newcomers getting treated like crap that we don't focus enough on the eventual welcoming that happens. And that's the thing that
there's probably a lot of insecurity. It's that we have this thing going that we kind of like as is. And now you're coming in here, and we don't know who you are, and you're going to disrupt it.
The lack of knowledge,
and
a lot of times, understanding.
And I think a lot of times too, there's sort of a scarcity mindset that we only have so much to go around, or whatever, instead of like abundance.
Are we going to have enough?
We've been proving it over and over again. There's enough. So I look at all of the immigration and migration to Chicago as a very good thing for Chicago, and even today. We're at about 2.6 million. At our heights, we were at 3.5 million people in Chicago. And that's, at any metric, Chicago was thriving when we had the 3.5 million. We were the grain capital, right, with the McCormick Reaper Works and that kind of stuff. We butchered everybody's pigs and cows with the Chicago Union stockyards. We moved all the freight across this country because we're the rail shippers of the world. And then we connect the resources of the East Coast to the Mississippi River with Chicago River, right? Yeah. So, the waterways and the canals, we needed all those people for all of those things to happen. And I think there's so many opportunities here in Chicago that we need people for
how is your perspective on the future of Chicago, one way or the other?
Oh, man, we're so bright. We have a very bright future. 20% of the world's fresh water is in our backyard, right? Right now, it ain't just me, bloviating about Chicago, but if you live in Las Vegas right now, you're worried that your kids are going to run out of water. That's a real worry for them right now. If you're in Florida, you're worried that hurricanes are coming more violent and more inland, right? I got buddies that live in Tampa, and 20 years ago, they went and got a six-pack and was not worried about a hurricane. The last three have been smacking them.
Right on top.
Right on top of them. And so Chicago's going to be the place. It's the reason why they picked Quantum. It's the reason why outside of London, more corporations are becoming headquartered here now. I'm not a corporate boss. I'm sure you can tell me all about the taxes and the crapola, and it's probably not a fun place to be, but it's a sustainable place to be, right? If when you get through with all the headaches of, our politics, that bottom line is still going to be in the black because of where we sit, because of how you can get raw materials.
A lot of resources.
So much stuff,
Great
right?
people.
The people are great. The housing stock is still pretty decent. And, we've been having chill winters. This is probably the hottest summer we've had in a couple summers. So things are looking up.
I
Chicago,
appreciate hearing that. I'm asking this question of a lot of folks that I'm talking to, because like you said, you get tired of like all the bad press. Some of it, we deserve some of it. But it just becomes sort of a punchline sometimes, and that's not right, because it's just a national treasure. It's an amazing city. It's a global city, and it's had a big impact on the world. And going back to your story, so you grew up in Auburn, Gresham, and I want to jump to the high school you went to because there's a connection there. And,
I went to, and man, my parents ain't here anymore. I'm
sorry to hear that.
Well, thank you, brother.
Yeah.
I wish they were, so my mother can remind me that I got into Lane Tech and Whitney Young and still decided to go to Calumet because I wanted to walk to school.
Okay.
Either one of those schools would require an hour bus ride. So I was like, I'm going to the neighborhood school, Ma, And so, I ended up going to Calumet High School, which in the 90s was probably not the greatest. I wouldn't let my kid make that choice now. If I was my parents, I would have fought it way, way harder. Like, okay, you do that and you'll never touch a car or something. Like, I'm going to have to bring a big stick. Because
How
it was rough.
How many siblings did you have?
I grew up with 5 brothers and a sister.
Okay, so there's 7.
It's 5 of us boys. It's
5 boys
total.
and 1 girl.
Yeah.
Okay, so 6 of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here. But we were all 6 boys. So.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Right on.
And I live in the city with 6 kids as well, and I think you're one of the only, not the only, but one of the only that maybe that I come across that has in the city has more kids than I.
Yeah, I got 7, and we're all in the city.
One of the reasons I wanted to bring up Calumet High School is because my grandpa and his brothers went to Calumet High School. Evergreen Park. The family had moved from Inglewood to Evergreen Park in 1915. They were farmers and they wanted more. It was lots of land out there.
Yeah.
And but they didn't have a high school in Evergreen Park until like the early 50s, I think. And so Evergreen Park folks would go to the city for school, and they would go to Calumet. So
you know what year?
In the late 30s.
Well, he was born in 21, so
it's like late 30s.
Yeah.
Yeah. They probably have that yearbook online. You should look it up.
Yeah, we should.
And
I think we have the actual physical
Oh,
yearbooks
yeah,
right on.
Right on. Yeah.
But Calumet though is no longer a high school, right?
Which is the saddest thing ever. If the Ozingas want to help me start a community center, we can call it Dilla Ozinga or something like that.
In the Calumet High School?
In the building.
Is it sitting empty?
Empty right
Wow.
now. It's a block long. It's beautiful. It has 2 libraries, 2 computer labs, a pool, 2 basketball courts. There's so many things.
Interesting.
But it's been closed since about 2009.
Okay. Didn't it try to be something else for a
Yeah,
little
it
while?
tried to be Perspectives,
Right.
which was a charter school, but they were only using about 1/4 of the school, but having to maintain the whole school. And so they said the maintenance cost was beating them up a little bit. Now, a number of TV shows use it. So they all summer long, they've been in and out. So if anything got a scene where it's a high school or anything like that, they're shooting a lot of it.
We should do a little bit of,
Calumet.
like, you do a TikTok on that.
You're inspiring me because I need to reach out to the city and just see if I can get a walkthrough and we could talk about the history and the people who graduated.
Let's do it. I'll
from
go
there.
with you.
You know, your family went there. Shaka Khan went there. You know, my favorite baseball player, he probably isn't the greatest, but my favorite is Kirby Puckett. Kirby found out that he was losing vision in his eye.
Yeah, I remember that.
During the World Series, but didn't tell anybody because he didn't want to get pulled out the lineup. And with one eye, he hit 2 home runs in the World Series. The amount of hand-eye coordination you need with both eyes to hit something coming at you the size of a lemon at 90 miles an hour is insane. But the muscle memory and skill and discipline and all that to be 30-something.
All honed at Calumet High School.
You know, right? It's crazy. It's crazy. He was a stud. Like they would teams would just forfeit, like, you know, middle of the game because every at bat he's taking them yard. You know, he was a stud at Calumet.
So tell me about your life these days. You know, you first of all, your name. Tell me about your name. It's like a stage name, or what do you?
Yeah, actually,
a handle.
When we get out here, I'll show you a picture.
Okay.
My dad, Chicago policeman for 32 years. So when you retire, you can have your name enshrined in a brick over a Gold Star Memorial.
Yeah.
So right down from Soldier Field. So our family brick says, "Thank you for 32 years of service, Officer Thomas, from your loving family, your wife Maria, your son Terrence, your son Levon, your son Lamar Jr., your son Devin, your daughter Angela, and your son Dilla." So my government name ain't even on the brick. When the aliens come back, they're going to swear Lamar Thomas had a son named Dilla and not Sherman. So that's how much my mom has been calling me Dilla, or my family calls me Dilla.
But where does it come from?
She used to take us in the store, and she'd be like, "Don't ask for nothing." We got it at home. And by the time we leave out, I got a bag full of stuff. And she said I always just had like this gift of gab. But, you know, I had to make it seem like I was doing her a favor by buying me something in the store. And so one day she said, "You know what you are? You are a used car salesman. You're a used car dealer. That's what you are.
Oh, Dilla.
You are Sherman Dilla Thomas.
There it is.
The used car dealer." And so the spelling is different, right? But that's where Dilla comes from.
Got it. All right.
She just started calling me Dilla. "What you want now, Mr.
And so
Dilla?"
when you were in like a kid in school and stuff, was that
maybe
your
about
nickname?
11 or 12, yeah.
Okay.
And everybody, the kids hear it, and then they're like, now you're Dilla. So I've been Dilla easily 30 years now.
Well, I have a good friend that I grew up with. He's a pastor in Roseland, and I mentioned that we're going to be talking today, and he's like, "Oh, I love his stuff." So you're well known all over the place with the content you're putting out there,
Especially in
keep it up.
Roseland. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
We do the neighborhood tours in Roseland.
Okay.
One of the things I'm most proud of is with these tours, I got to figure out a way so I can get some of that revenue for myself, but we're generating.
We got 7 kids. You got to find something.
Yeah.
I got to figure it out. But the Illinois Department of Revenue said that our tours are responsible for about $500,000 worth of circulated money over the last 2.5 years, because I'll take a group to Roseland and then we'll get out and we'll go to Old Fashioned Donuts, and everybody will get a donut.
We were just there recently, and they got us those donuts.
Right on. And so 48 new customers that wasn't going to be in that neighborhood and now all buying half dozen donuts. But then what always happens is somebody loves those donuts, and now they're ordering for the office. Somebody else loves those donuts, and now the donuts are being catered at the 8th grade graduation. Same thing with Be Love Cafe, or same thing with like Brown Sugar Bakery or Jean Michel Ice Cream. So there are about 10 businesses we stop at, and we stop at the community grocery store in Inglewood. And he told me, if you come here on 3 consecutive Sundays, everyone can work full time for like 2 months. So when you don't come, I got to say, "Hey, we ain't got enough money. I got to cut your hours. You're going to do 6 hours today." So when you bring your 2 tour groups back consistently, just 3 Sundays, it gives me 3 months, right? Because people always come back, or they, that exposure.
It's getting people in the neighborhoods that would not normally go into those neighborhoods, which is such a crime, right?
Yeah.
But it's that balance between what they're seeing on TV, that media push of, "Oh, it's a terrible place to be," and now you're bringing them in and showing them that these are just regular people just trying to make a living and a happy day. Yep. And I know you have a real connection to bringing kids into the neighborhoods and getting them. I mean, we talk about this all the time, is bringing the next generation into the company, bringing the next generation up. How do you foresee bringing history to them and making it, I mean, obviously you're doing a great job at it, but what do you think the next generation is going to be able to see and do because we're bringing that history to them?
Well, I think they'll be able to see value in the places that they are, right? It kind of starts that way, At some point, as you're growing up, it hits you like, and mom and dad had to work their butt off for this. You never know, but it just hits you. You get to become a teenager and all that. You get your first job. You see how fast that paycheck goes away. And you're like, man, like they really I'm fortunate. And so in a historical context, a lot of times these kids that are in these neighborhoods don't know the history of the neighborhood. They don't know how fortunate you are to be growing up. If you live in Humboldt Park, you live in the neighborhood that gave the world Wizard of Oz, right? Wizard of Oz was written in Humboldt Park. What does Wizard of Oz mean to generations of people, right? And now we got all our kids watching Wicked, right?
Yep.
And then the new movie's gonna come out. We're all gonna be in line, right back dressed up in pink and green. That you live in a neighborhood that had the whole world excited to take their daughters to see movies, right? But that should make your heart burst. And so being aware of that history, makes you move different in a space once have respect for that space. But then it also shows you the possibilities. That's the other thing that we try to align with. There are people that had similar circumstances or worse circumstances from this same place that you're in right now, and they were able to go conquer the world. And so if they could do it from here, you can do it from here too. You don't have to go live in Wilmette in order to make it, right? You can make it out of Inglewood, you can make it out of Morgan Park, you can make it out of, wherever.
I love that. To me, it's been significant in my own life, and it continues to be. This because I think, particularly as a younger person, you somehow have this, kind of like you talked about it, you grew up in a certain neighborhood, you think things have always been this way, or it's just, this is the way life is, and this is the way it'll always be, and you become a student of history, and you realize that now you are someone shaped this. To your point, your parents did a whole lot of things, and all of a sudden you feel like now I have some agency over crafting this story that I'm in. I'm a character, I'm a co-author in this thing.
We're making history every day.
Yeah, when
we're making history every day.
When you grasp that, there's a certain hopefulness in it.
Yeah.
There's a certain purpose that comes with this idea that we can create, and shape the arc of history with our very lives, being in community with each other, having conversations.
Lives, You guys, particularly you, right? I was a union steward for a while, and I would always tell the guys, like, these rules that are keeping you safe, right? The guy that's hosing down the slide at the concrete, I don't know the technical terms, to shoot. He got to have on gloves. Why does he have to have on gloves? He probably thinks it's a pain in the butt that he has to have on gloves. No, some dude didn't have on gloves, and now he's missing a finger. Right. And so these things that keep
our safety guy would love you for this
podcast.
It's like, no, these they used to get sick of me. I said it every day. I was like, this safety rule book is written in blood, bro. No one was just sitting around and pulling things out of the air. Like, no, a dude got out came out the basement, and then the lip came up too fast and his head hit the air conditioner. And now, when you get out your truck, you got to have your hard hat on until the time you get back in your truck, right? And that's pain in the butt to you. But when you learn the story, that I always found when I had to do safety stuff, when I told the story of how it became a rule, I got all the buy-in in the world, because the story matters, and that's that history. And so that's the same, I'm using that by and large to get buy-in to help us make sure.
I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about, you had a steady job, you said a union job, and then you became an entrepreneur sort of out of necessity. You thought it was going to be a hobby, but, people look at entrepreneurship or business owners or, TikTok stars or whatever, and they think, oh, that must be such a, whatever,
man.
Like how
fun and easy.
Tell
us
us about
talking so good. Now we're gonna have a negative conversation.
Well, I think you need a reality check on how hard and how much grit you need to persevere.
The grit is certainly the word. You got to have thick skin. You got to be tough. You got to be very deliberate, and you got to really believe in what you're doing, because a lot of the days your best ain't gonna get it done, and then you're gonna have to go revisit what your best is and what's your approach. You're learning on the fly. I wouldn't recommend what I did to a lot of people, right? I had
a lot of entrepreneurs say that even after they've had success.
Yeah.
I would never have done this again. I wouldn't recommend anyone else to do
I wouldn't. I said sometimes schools bring me in to talk about being entrepreneurs, and then when I leave,
don't do it.
They're like, why? What? We're not going to have you come back and talk to the business school anymore. I think you should probably start with, if money wasn't a thing, would I still do this? And if the answer is yes, then go down that journey of entrepreneurship.
I think there's a lot of wisdom in that.
Yes.
Because it's got to be your purpose or your passion that carries you. Because
It's in your heart.
Yeah.
You get the best team. There's some. Ty is an amazing guy on my team. Miss Diane is amazing, but it's impossible for them to feel what I feel when I get to the bus and the air conditioner ain't working. When I gotta in that moment figure out it's 95 degrees. There's a family reunion that wants to take a neighborhood tour of Bridgeport because Granny came here in 1930 to work at the stockyards, and they're gonna bring the family by this old house, and this was the pivotal of the family reunion. And I'm standing there with a bus that don't have any air conditioning, right? What are you gonna do? And prior to this moment, have you been thinking about contingencies? Have you been understanding that stuff breaks? So what kind of relationships have you been building? And when you see people, when you're at the truck stop fueling up, are you talking to the other coach bus drivers? Are you exchanging cards? Are you doing all these things so that in this moment of calamity, you got options, And if you don't love what you're doing, that thought process isn't even going to come.
Everything's got to be one step ahead of thought
and mentorship. I'm it's coming very soon. Email from me, Brother Marty, asking questions about stuff, because the goal, I do want to scale. There's problems with scaling too fast, right? There's a very famous restaurant called Leon's in Chicago, Leon's Barbecue. People love Leon's, and they used to have a line out the door on 83rd and Cottage Grove, right? And then they had the one on 63rd. And they were always busy, and it was a pain in the butt, and you were going to wait 20 minutes to get your chicken or your barbecue, but it was going to always be good. But then they built this huge restaurant on 59th and Racine, and trying to keep that place running, they were pulling money out of the other ones, and that too large expansion killed the whole thing, right? I'm going to go find Leon Finley Jr. and have these conversations with him and say, hey, what did you see? So mentorship too. None of us know it all. And then humility. I've been able to do some pretty cool stuff since I started this company. I was just in Jim Belushi's house last week,
really?
Right? I've taken Bears players on tours. I've met President Obama, Governor Pritzker. I've been asked by Chicago celebrities to do their genealogy and try to find original Chicago addresses. All that stuff is very cool, and I'm very appreciative of it. But if at any point of it you start to feel like you've made it, or now, that'll be the last time you do the thing. Yeah. So you gotta have you also gotta be a little crazy. A sane person goes and gets a law degree and works as a corporate lawyer and makes bank and goes play golf, right? And leaves the company problems at the company when you close your laptop. You got to be a psycho. You'll be in the best REM sleep ever, and then the business will wake you up out of your sleep. Did you send that email yesterday? You didn't, did you? And now tomorrow's going to suck. Wake up right now. It just happens.
Tell me a little bit more about the business itself these days. You mentioned the tours. What's the name of the tour?
So Chicago Mahogany Tours is the name of the company.
Where does that name come from?
Chicago, obviously. Right. Mahogany was my dad's favorite movie. It was filmed here in Chicago. We highlight and disseminate Chicago history as a matter of principle. We don't do any downtown tours. And there's so many companies already doing it. And I want to pull people into the neighborhoods. And so that's not a service that we offer. So Chicago Mahogany, it's 3-tiered. We do neighborhood tours. We do historical content. Then I do historical presentations. So I go to a lot of schools and offices. I do lunch and learns. I do personal development training. Right now, one of the things we do is every new first-year medical resident for University of Chicago is required to take my tour. Right? It's one thing you're going to come practice medicine. But you're gonna if you're at University of Chicago and you're working in Woodlawn and you tell a patient, hey, your blood pressure's high, you need a low sodium Mediterranean diet. If you've never been to Woodlawn, there's 0 places there that's low sodium and Mediterranean. And so then when the patient comes back, you're kind of grumpy at them, like, what are you doing? Your numbers are the same. But like you said, a lot of us don't leave our neighborhood. So if you're a senior citizen on a fixed income with no car, a doctor has to come up with another plan for you because of your lived environment. But if you've never seen that environment, it doesn't register to you. So we make them take neighborhood tours, and we're very proud of that. It teaches them a people's focus kind of approach to medicine. So proud of that kind of stuff. I have a show on YouTube called You Don't Know Shy, where we take guests and talk about the history of Chicago. And we're very close to signing a deal with one of the local networks where they'll air it on TV. I'm trying to get a book out of me at some point. I'm just so busy.
It's hard.
Yeah,
I've been trying that too. Can't get it.
Yeah, you gotta. And then I'm the type of person that if I ever am able to just sit and surrender, then everything else is going to fall to the wayside because I'm a hyper focus on getting the book out. And then it takes everybody else 6 months to write a book, and I'm gonna do it in 3 weeks. But I'm gonna ignore everything for that whole 3 weeks.
Well, what about DuSable? What are you doing there, and how are you helping them rebuild or build their brand?
Yeah, I'm exactly that. I'm the brand ambassador for the DuSable Museum of Black History. We hear DuSable Museum of Black History, and then you say to yourself, oh, it's a Black History Museum. And if you're not Black, you may go, you may not go. You may feel like it's not for you. And what I'm trying to get you to see is, do you like cognac? Do you enjoy cognac at all, right? A little Remy VSOP, a little Douce every now and again, right? Gets a chill off your bones. The reason why you as an American like cognac is Black people. Because World War I, Black Americans had to fight in France. And where's cognac from? Cognac, France. Prior to World War I, Americans drank bourbon and whiskey. Cognac wasn't even a thing here. When those Black soldiers came back from France, they become like the backup players of Thelonious Monk and Duke Ellington and the big bands. And so they're in the Cotton Club, and they're bringing not just the music, but their taste with them, right? Which is cognac. And then cognac becomes this thing that Americans like, right? That ain't just connected to, I got Irish pals, I got Greek pals, I got Lithuanian pals that like cognac, right? But the reason you do is because of Black people. So come see the damn museum, right? It has a connection to you too. You're not living in America. You don't like jazz or R&B or rock and roll or hip hop, right? You like one of those. Those contributions come from people that you'll see in that museum. So trying to shape the narrative that way, but also trying to shape it to where you're kick-ass Chicago. And if you've been to the Art Institute of Chicago, the Swedish History Museum, the Polish History, they all should be on your list. You should visit them all periodically. Because learning about others teaches you about yourself.
Yeah, I love that.
How can you not come to Chicago and not go to a cultural institution?
Right.
We have so many.
We have so many.
And we have so many in the neighborhoods, too. And probably not enough, right?
Everything has to have an evolving kind of thing. As much as I love history, right? I don't want you to ever knock down any bungalow or two flat in Chicago ever again. Nobody, right? But at the same time, so some of that lead got to come out of bungalows, and it's going to be PCP, right? Some of the way we used to tuck point it, the mortar is different. You guys tell me, right? What they were using for mortar back then ain't what they're using now, right? And so there will still be changes, you know what I mean? So you can maintain the structure of something and still allow for it to grow and change and evolve and work in a way that suits the user best.
As you sit there and dream, you talked about what you love or your passion or your dreams, like your vision for your business or yourself or your family or Chicago for that matter. How do you, when you have time to dream, what are you thinking about?
Man, I would love for Chicago as a city to understand that we're a complex place. There's no blanketed approach to progress. And what progress looks like downtown might not be what progress looks like in Andersonville. In a perfect world, for me, my dream Chicago is we're allowing these spaces to dictate what these spaces need. We're supportive of that. I would like to see us go all in and really trying to bolster up our school system. And, we have the resource, talent, and skills to make Chicago Public Schools the gem of the country. and I think we'll all be better off for it.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I think it starts there in the schools, and if we can, you know, support the schools, even if you don't have kids, you know, spend a semester volunteering. If you spent one semester, if all of us adults spent just one semester volunteering in our lifetime, the schools would be better, right? It would be so much better if all of us just did one semester of volunteering. So just stuff like that is what I dream. And for my business, it's like, I'm sure it's like you. We were talking about you, her and I, you know, before. And it seems to me that you understand that you're not just like this boss of this company, but you're a curator of this family heritage and this name, and you know,
a steward in a way.
A steward, yeah. And so, you know, I think we need more kind of stewards of Chicago to step up and understand that. My grandpa had a whole bunch of sayings. One of them gets me in trouble all the time. He used to always say, it's better to beg for forgiveness than to ask for permission. Right. So that gets me in trouble all the time. But the other one that doesn't get me in trouble is he said, God bless the man that plants a seed knowing he will never sit under the shade of that tree.
Yeah.
Right. I might not benefit or see the Chicago I want to see, but I should still do the work to get there.
Because your kids or your grandkids are going to see it.
Over your shoulder, I'm looking at our purpose statement is to have a positive impact on individuals, their families, and the community for generations.
Yeah.
And our thought is we are the beneficiaries of people who've come before us that we never knew, we never met, to the example of that proverb. Like, we will be making investments in things that we will never be a beneficiary of, but future generations of people will. And as we go about living into our creativity, like you said, volunteering, giving of ourselves, trying to make our world a better place, in this case Chicago, someone's going to benefit, you know, but we may never witness that in this life anyway, and that's okay. Our legacy lives on in other people as we go about doing things.
And the family is the foundation of the company, right? And there's been lots of companies, not just one, but lots of companies. But going forward, it's this whole idea that they started small.
Yeah.
They were fortunate in lots of ways, but there's this thread throughout of generosity and humility. You said humility, and it's always the first thing I think of when I think of the Ozingas, both from the historical perspective and currently. You know, humility is an important part of how we function. I think we function better when we have a little humility.
I think one of the things that people don't understand you do is that, you know, the business, it keeps you humble.
Yeah.
Well, you're such a humble person. It's like, well, every day I'm getting kind of kicked in the you-know-what. That's keeping me on my knees.
It's kind of like baseball, right? You're the greatest hitter ever if you strike out 7 out of 10 times.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is a great analogy.
You are going in the Hall of Fame if you strike out 7 out of 10 times, right? Which, you know, ain't a success. It speaks to you got to keep going.
Up.
There's also that little bit of having a little bit of good luck.
Oh yeah,
a little bit of being in the right place at the right time.
You know, and I think if you have your purpose, you have the things you're passionate about, you see your children, and someday they're going to have children, and you're going to do whatever it takes, you know, because that's what, you know, you're made to do.
Man, I am living my dad's wildest dream right now. And do I want more? Absolutely. There are like 6 pair of Jordans I want to buy tomorrow. I want to be able to afford a house on the north side pretty soon, right? So I can, you know, see different textures of Chicago and so on and so forth. But I got the lowest tours in the city. You know, I pretty popular. I could charge more, but then it wouldn't be accessible. Man, every other week somebody has the saddest story on earth about, you know, all 8th grade season because of some of the Department of Education grant cuts. Some schools were not able to do their 8th grade trip. And anybody that knew I had a bus was calling, hey, can you donate the bus? Hey, can you do that? And so, no problem. And then others would be like, well, you know, you can't give it away, bro. You got to make something. And I say, man, every time that I'm generous, I get something back that I wasn't expecting.
Yep.
What's the cost for me to do the generous thing? and then what's going to be the ROI, right? And the ROI is going to be 50 kids on the bus that's happy as hell, and if 30% of them one day remember that this history nerd dude made it possible for them to go experience a thing, then what's going to come back? They're going to take a tour. They're going to buy a T-shirt.
Yeah.
I might not see it now. I'm going to see it later in good tiding, in word of mouth, in reputation.
Well, we love hearing your story. We love having you here as a guest, and we hope that somehow or another our relationship can continue to flourish, and whatever that might look like, but that we can be an encouragement to you, and also that you can continue to do good work out in Chicago, and we're happy to have you.
I'll wait till maybe like the fourth time we're together to beg and ask for stuff. I won't do it on the first couple. That ain't right. But what I do appreciate about Ozinga, appreciate about Clayco, is lunchtime. What do I mean by that? The mandatory hour that the dudes get, and the cement truck ain't spinning, and they're all sitting on the side, telling lies and eating lunch and talking junk. I see fried chicken. I see tamales. I see tuna casserole. I see potatoes, right? And what I'm saying is I see Chicago on the lunch breaks. You know what I'm saying? I see people from all sides of the city, which means that I know it's becoming a politicized word, but on its own, inclusion is a pretty cool thing. And, it's very well represented in your company. And that makes me proud, because everything isn't a racial thing and all of that, and I get that, but it does people from my side of town well to walk past a construction site and see the black dude with the little broom thing trying to smooth out the damn cement. I don't know what the heck that thing is. And then to see him getting cussed out in Spanish by the dude, you're too close, back up, and then the foreman comes and they all represent Chicago.
Sounds like you've been watching the sites a little bit.
Oh man, I'm telling you, I'm always paying attention. And so that has to start from the top.
Yeah.
Right. An inclusive environment that's well representative of.
Well, life
of
is much
Chicago.
more interesting. You kind of told the story of how neighborhoods are the way they are and why they are, and there's some positives, like you said, to some of that. But if you don't break out and see like the bigger spice of life, even traveling the world or whatever it takes to do that, you really miss out on a big slice of life. And a friend of ours, Pastor Corey Brooks from Project Hood, he recently has taken some of these kids to Africa. Yeah. And it just opened up their minds so dramatically, because they've pretty much been in the same block most of their life. And to travel the world internationally, it's done that for me. To get out of neighborhoods and just to see things, it really gives you a bigger vision for yourself. So I love what you're doing, that you're opening up, neighborhoods to people, and we wish you the best, and we want to continue to be a friend. So
likewise, thank you. If you ever need something from me, hit me up.
Okay, cool. All right, take care.
Hey, you too.
Yeah, good to be with you.
Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to Set in Stone on your preferred podcast app, as well as on YouTube for full video of every conversation. Keep up on our social media and company updates over at ozinga.com.